Well, guess what? Spotify finally explains its COVID-19 misinformation policy, but hints Joe Rogan is safe. Now, Joe, again, I'll say it again. The most honest person I've ever met in show business is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is a comedian who did a podcast and did 3-hour conversations with people instead of 4-minute conversations like they do on the Tonight Show, and then they throw ping pong balls into a beer cup. He actually has 3-hour. He reinvented the interview process. It's a 3-hour now, and he covers a lot of stuff. And Joe Rogan became, I don't know, 1 million times more popular than CNN and the establishment news and entertainment because people trust him.
But this is what's crazy, Jimmy. They technically are not competition. They're news shows.
I know.
And he's just got to. It's like if you were a basketball player that won a swimming medal. Like they're not in the same game.
You're right. Well, Spotify and Joe Rogan respond to complaints about COVID misinformation. Here's what Spotify, they're going to change their approach. This is what they say. We are working to add a content advisory to any podcast episode that includes a discussion about COVID-19. This advisory will direct listeners to our dedicated COVID-19 hub, a resource that provides easy access to data-driven facts, up-to-date information as shared by scientists, physicians, academics, and public health authorities around the world, as well as links to trusted sources. The new effort to combat misinformation will roll out to countries around the world in the coming days. To our knowledge, this content advisory is the first of its kind by any major podcast platform. Good for them. I think it's ridiculous. People already have a computer. They know where to find information about COVID-19. They know they know the FDA.gov. They know CDC. They know where to go. They know they can turn on CNN and listen to Fauci spout his lies. They know where they can go. They know where to get that information. This is all just window dressing because they're catching heat. If I was Spotify, I would tell everybody to go fuck off. Because they're all spewing misinformation at the top of their lungs constantly. Right now, CNN is ramping up for war in Russia, in the Ukraine. Yes, and they're lying. Of course they are. Okay, there's more. We will also begin testing ways to highlight our platform rules and our creator and publisher tools to raise awareness around what's acceptable and help creators understand their accountability for their content they post on our platform. This is in addition to the terms that creators and publishers agreeing to govern their use of our services. I really wish that Spotify would kick Joe Rogan off because they'd have to pay him the $100 million that they contracted for him, and then Joe would just go to his own website. I mean, obviously, I don't wish that on Joe Rogan. I hope a harmonious relationship with Joe and Spotify, but and good on Spotify for standing up. They're not taking Joe Rogan down.
This means nothing.
No, right. That's all. This means nothing. And Joe Rogan doesn't need Spotify. I know that sounds funny to you. He doesn't. Spotify needs Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan gets 200 million downloads a month. Joe Rogan gets 11 million views per podcast. Okay. And so Joe Rogan responded, and here's what he said. Watch how crazy he sounds. So unhinged. Watch this.
I wanted to make this video, first of all, because I think there's a lot of people that have a distorted perception of what I do, maybe based on sound bites or based on headlines of articles that are disparaging. The podcast has been accused of spreading dangerous misinformation, specifically about 2 episodes, a little bit about some other ones, but specifically about 2. One with Dr. Peter McCullough and one with Dr. Robert Malone. Dr. Peter McCullough is a cardiologist, and he is the most published physician in his field in history. Dr. Robert Malone owns 9 patents on the creation of mRNA vaccine technology and is at least partially responsible for the creation of the technology that led to mRNA vaccines.
So those aren't fringe characters. People like to say that. People keep saying you can't listen to fringe doctors. You have to listen to mainstream medicine, which, that's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But people say that with a straight face. And no, they're not fringe. Again, that doctor's the most referenced doctor in his field. Dr. Robert Malone, not a fringe guy. He's the inventor of the mRNA vaccine technology that the mRNA vaccines are using. And he has
That's
9
not-
other patents. Go ahead.
Fringe medicine is like, a homeopathy or something. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like that's mainstream medicine.
Yeah,
what he
fringe
does.
medicine is you take dandelions and crystals, and that's fringe medicine. Not a guy who's the most referenced frickin' cardiologist in print. That's not a fringe guy. Okay.
Both these people are very highly credentialed, very intelligent, very accomplished people, and they have an opinion that's different from the mainstream narrative. I wanted to hear what their opinion is. I had them on, and because of that, those episodes in particular, those episodes were labeled as being dangerous. They had dangerous misinformation in them. The problem I have with the term misinformation, especially today, is that many of the things that we thought of as misinformation just a short while ago are now accepted as fact. Like, for instance, 8 months ago, if you said, if you get vaccinated, you can still catch COVID and you can still spread COVID, you would be removed from social media. They would ban you from certain platforms.
If you said you thought the virus might have originated in a Wuhan lab, you would be considered a conspiracy theorist spreading misinformation, and you would be banned from all social media platforms.
Now, that's accepted as fact. If you said, I don't think cloth masks work, you would be banned from social media. Now, that's openly and repeatedly stated on CNN. If you said, I think it's possible that COVID-19 came from a lab, you'd be banned from many social media platforms. Now, that's on the cover of Newsweek. All of those theories that at one point in time were banned were openly discussed by those 2 men that I had on my podcast that have been accused of dangerous misinformation. I do not know if they're right. I don't know, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a person who sits down and talks to people and has conversations with them. Do I get things wrong? Absolutely, I get things wrong, but I try to correct them. Whenever I get something wrong, I try to correct it because I'm interested in telling the truth. I'm interested in finding out what the truth is. And I'm interested in having interesting conversations with people that have differing opinions. I'm not interested in only talking to people that have one perspective. That's one of the reasons why I had Sanjay Gupta on, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who I respect very much, and I really enjoyed our conversation together. He has a different opinion than those men do. I had Dr. Michael Osterholm on at the very beginning of the pandemic. He is on President Biden's COVID-19 advisory board. I had Dr. Peter Hotez on, who is a vaccine expert. I'm interested in finding out what is correct, and I'm also finding out how people come to these conclusions and what the facts are. Now, because of this controversy, and I'm sure there's a lot of other things going on behind the scenes with these controversies, but Neil Young has removed his music from the platform of Spotify, and Joni Mitchell, and apparently some other people want to as well. I'm very sorry that they feel that way. I most certainly don't want that. One of the things that Spotify wants to do that I agree with is that at the beginning of these controversial podcasts, like specifically ones about COVID, is to put a disclaimer and say that you should speak with your physician, and that these people and the opinions that they express are contrary to the opinions of the consensus of experts, which I think is very important. Sure, have that on there. I'm very happy with that. Also, I think if there's anything that I've done that I could do better is have more experts with differing opinions right after I have the controversial ones. I would most certainly be open to doing that. And I would like to talk to some people that have differing opinions on those podcasts in the future. We'll see. I do all the scheduling myself, and I don't always get it right. These podcasts are very strange because they're just conversations. And oftentimes I have no idea what I'm going to talk about until I sit down and talk to people. And that's why some of my ideas are not that prepared or fleshed out, because I'm literally having them in real time. But I do my best, and they're just conversations. And I think that's also the appeal of the show. It's one of the things that makes it interesting. I don't know what else I can do differently other than maybe try harder to get people with differing opinions on right afterwards. I do think that that's important. And and do my best to make sure that I've researched these topics, the controversial ones in particular, and have all the pertinent facts at hand before I discuss them. Again, I'm not trying to promote misinformation. I'm not trying to be controversial. I've never tried to do anything with this podcast other than just talk to people and have interesting conversations. So my pledge to you is that I will do my best to try to balance out these more controversial viewpoints with other people's perspectives so we can maybe find a better point of view. I don't want to just show the contrary opinion to what the narrative is. I want to show all kinds of opinions so that we can all figure out what's going on, and not just about COVID, about everything, about health, about fitness, wellness, the state of the world itself. It's a strange responsibility to have this many viewers and listeners. It's very strange, and it's nothing that I prepared for, and it's nothing that I ever anticipated. I am going to do my best in the future to balance things out. I'm going to do my best. But my point of doing this is always just to create interesting conversations and ones that I hope people enjoy. So if I pissed you off, I'm sorry. And if you enjoy the podcast, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to Spotify. Thank you all the supporters. And even thank you to the haters, because it's good to have some haters. It makes you reassess what you're doing and put things into perspective. And I think that's good too.
Wow. Talk about toxic masculinity.
Boy, he really sounds unhinged, crazy person. Why would you want a nut like that? Again, the biggest purveyors of misinformation and lies is the government. Second is the corporate media. Joe Rogan is way down on that list. And by the way, if Joe Rogan ever gets anything wrong, he's doing it in good faith, and he corrects it when it's pointed out to him. Unlike Rachel Maddow, unlike CNN lied about ivermectin. Joe Rogan got Sanjay Gupta went on his show. And Joe Rogan embarrassed Sanjay Gupta because Sanjay Gupta had to admit that CNN was lying about ivermectin. CNN actually colored to Joe's video to make him look sick.
Yeah, I want to see this again. I'm going to wait to make a judgment on this until CNN retouches it with lesions on his face.
Exactly.
Here's what Andrew Schultz says. Watch Rogan's response and tell me if you disagree with a single thing. Dude literally has the media and political establishment trying to take him out, and he's smiling. The establishment cannot win. They do not have the people. They lost with too many lies. Well said, Andrew Schultz. Here is Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro makes it under the Jimmy Dore show in a positive way. This is something. He says they aren't upset with Joe Rogan because of his COVID-19 perspective. They're angry at him because he talks with people they hate, and they can't stand that. That's a big part of it. That's certainly a big part of it. And
that's the main part. This is why Rogan's such a gracious guy. Like, all these people don't want to go on. He doesn't invite them. They don't want to go on the show. They don't want to. Sanjay Gupta was like, I thought I was going to be hit. They're afraid to go on his show. It's not like he wouldn't have them. They just don't want you talking to the people they hate. You're supposed to acknowledge the blacklisting.
That's right. Here's another one. Marianne Williamson. She says, I'm triple vaxxed, but unless they're standing for hate or calling for violence, banning someone's podcast is too much like burning a book to me. Joe Rogan should talk on his podcast about whatever he damn well pleases. And that's 93,000 frickin' likes. This is not a fringe opinion. So this idea that the Democrats, and what are they pissed off at Joe Rogan about? They're pissed off that Joe Rogan is to the left of the Democratic Party. That's what they're upset about. He endorsed Bernie Sanders. That's what they're upset about. He said he wouldn't vote for Joe Biden because he was demented. That's what they're upset about. That's what they're upset about, that they can't control Joe Rogan, and now they've got a bullshit issue that they think they can use as a cudgel to beat him over the head and get rid of him or diminish him. It's not working. Here's Marianne frickin' Williamson. And she's 1,000% right about this. God bless Marianne Williamson. You know, when she first started running for president, we had critiques of her, like we do of all people. But she's really grown politically, I'll tell you that. And so tip of the hat to Marianne Williamson for doing this.
Jimmy, there's also it also reminds me of especially with the media, like, you know, when they're going to make weed legal and everybody that makes beer got together, be like, hey, that's not fair because they don't have the regulations that we have. That's what this news thing is. Joe Rogan gets to have an unfettered conversation without something handed to him first of what he can and can't say, and he's just not living under the compromised corporate nonsense that they live under. It's no fair.
It's no fair.
He doesn't have to do just sound bites. He gets to talk for 3 hours and get into it. No fair.
No fair. All right, here's some more. Justin Amash says, people trust Joe Rogan, not because he's always right, but because he's transparent, curious, gracious, humble about knowledge, and willing to consider perspectives that challenge and reshape his own thinking. We need more of this in the media and in politics and business and in life. Yes, we do. Well said, Justin. Let's go to another one here. Oh, so people are so wrong about this, they can make Meghan McCain right.
Oh, no.
That's how bad people are. They can make Meghan McCain look like a sage. Watch this. Watch this. Ask yourself why so many Americans have fled mainstream media and gone to Joe Rogan. He gets 100 million listeners a month. More than that, Meghan. And Jim Acosta can't even break 500,000 in primetime. Why doesn't anyone trust you anymore? So that was well said. She got the numbers wrong. James Blunt, he wins for the day. He says, if Spotify doesn't immediately remove Joe Rogan, I will release new music onto the platform.
That's pretty funny, too.
That was so beautiful. Beautiful. James Blunt. You win, James Blunt. And here is David Sachs. He says, how the modern left thinks about causation. Joe Rogan is responsible for killing people by virtue of conducting interviews. But Fauci is absolutely blameless, despite lifting the Obama-era ban on gain-of-function research and funding the Wuhan lab.
Hey, that's racist.
So, God bless Joe Rogan. And again, I'll say it again. I met a lot of people in show business. He is the most honest guy I've ever met. He's the most sincere.
Yeah, I agree.
He's the most sincere dude I've ever met in show business. And I've met everybody.
Jimmy, I didn't know this. He got like black, kind of like, he was getting booked at he had a lot of flack when he jumped up and was over Mencia stealing jokes.
He got kicked out of the comedy store. He got disinvited.
And he went back there and like basically brought all this new business in for a long time when he was living there. Like, he's just a good guy, straight up.
Yeah, he didn't hold a grudge against the comedy store for doing that. So Carlos Mencia, when Joe Rogan called Carlos Mencia out for stealing jokes, Carlos Mencia pressured the comedy store to bar Joe Rogan, or else Carlos Mencia, who had a hit show at the time, wasn't going to come to the comedy store. So they banned Joe Rogan for a little while. And of course, Carlos Mencia's star waned and Joe Rogan became the biggest thing in show business, and they invited him back to the comedy store, and he went back graciously and brought them tons of business. And they're really honest. I've met a lot of people, and of course, you know, you could say I'm biased because he brings me on his podcast, but he brings me on his podcast because I have an extreme left-wing view, and then he brings on people who have extreme right-wing views, and he likes to have conversations with everybody, and that's why people love his show, because it's interesting, and he's not in a bubble. So, God bless Joe Rogan, and again, I'll say it again, Spotify needs Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan does not need Spotify. Joe Rogan doesn't need Amazon. Joe Rogan doesn't need YouTube. Joe Rogan doesn't need Apple. All Joe Rogan needs is joerogan.com.
Well, I heard if you play Joe Rogan backwards, he tells you to worship Satan.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
True story.
Yeah. But if you play CNN forward, they tell you to worship Satan. So that's the weird thing. That's the weird thing. Hey, we're doing live stand-up shows in Los Angeles, February 5th, February 12th, February 18th, February 20th, we're in Philadelphia, and then February 26th, back here in Los Angeles in Studio City at our 60-seat theater. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for all tickets, and while you're there, become a premium member, get access to all our premium content.